Hey guys, it's been a while. Uh, it's a lot been going on in my life lately, so I haven't been making a lot of videos. I haven't been making any, in fact. Um, but today, I wanted to actually talk to you about this inflation deal that's going on right now. See, inflation is really just an excuse that business owners and investors use to price gouge you, just so they can maximize their profits. It doesn't matter that they're making more money than ever, which they are. It doesn't matter that your wages are stagnant, which is why people are demanding more higher wages so that they can compensate for someone else's greed, i.e., landlords and other product makers who are demanding more for the products they make so that they can line their own pockets. It's not that it costs more to make overall, it's just that they're greedy. So it's a ripple effect. This whole inflation is a ripple effect. And the funny thing is, the mainstream media and these politicians, they treat it as if it's some law of nature with a mind of its own. It's not. It's totally man-made. It's an arbitrary excuse that greedy people use to put more money in their pockets at your expense. That's all inflation really is. So if you really want to know how to get this kind of thing under control, the first thing you have to do is understand that part of it, that it's not a law of nature. In a way, it can be cooked into how economics basically functions. There's one part of that that actually does make sense, and that is the supply and demand aspect of it. But that's used by the corporate media because they're corporations too. They're all about making profits. It's used by politicians because they're personally invested in these companies and even sometimes own their own companies, which makes them slaves to the profit motive as well. So they just want to make more profits because they want to convince you to spend more money that you're not making in order to bolster their stock portfolios. That doesn't make any sense, does it? Now, in order to properly combat this, you of course need unions, and the good news is there are strikes going on all throughout the country. John Deere and their workforce just struck a really good deal. You have other strikes going on. I hope more follow, because that's the power workers have in this country, whether we realize it or not. We have the power in numbers. We have the power of labor. Case in point, you go to the Scandinavian countries. I know folks on the left like myself point to them all the time. But the reason they have some of the policies that come across to Americans as socialist is because of the power of organized labor. Okay, Denmark has 53% unionization rate. Sweden has 67%. Finland just reached 75%, up from 68%. And Norway has 65%. I mean, Iceland has 84%. Come on, how do you beat that, right? But what unions lead to in a capitalist system is greater bargaining power. It leads to, ultimately, if you're successful, a better standard of living for the working class. And it doesn't actually hurt the lifestyle of the rich, okay? It really doesn't. These are people who have, in my estimation, and there is evidence to support this. I wish I had actually documented it. I talked to a doctor, a psychologist, on a PDA meeting a few weeks ago who told me, yes, there is evidence to support this, that this level of greed is actually a mental condition. All right, it's not that different from a drug addiction or alcohol addiction or whatever. So I think these people ultimately need psychiatric help. They need therapy. They need treatment. They don't need more money and power, because that's just making the problem worse, not just for the rest of us, but for their overall health. But anyway, to deal with inflation, you need stronger unions. You need to bring this to the forefront. Let them know that you know their game. You know what they're trying to do to you. You know that they don't care about you, and that you don't care about them because you're willing to withhold your labor, which means they won't make money. Now, of course, the argument they're going to give to you is, you're nothing without us kind of thing. Our companies exist for you to have jobs so you can have a chance at putting dinner on your table kind of thing. Well, that's not much of an arrangement, is it? You're not really giving us much to bargain for at that point, so to hell with you. Who needs you then? We can start again without you. That's the one thing we don't seem to really catch on to in this country is, we can just ditch the whole system, the people who run it, and start all over again without really much trouble in the long run. But that said, if you really want to keep things going for yourself in the system we have now, you got to have strong labor unions. You got to understand where this inflation argument is coming from and how it really operates. It's an arbitrary decision made by people at the top just to put more money in their pockets. It has nothing to do with your increase in wages. It has nothing to do with your demand for high wages. It has nothing to do with the fact that, oh, we've got to search around for all this other insurance and benefits if we have to have them. A lot of companies don't want to have them. Some companies who have to have health insurance, they actually have to fish around for the lowest possible cost, which means the coverage is going to be terrible, which is a video I'm going to get to next. Okay, just wait and look for that one. But inflation is a weapon that the business community uses to muzzle the working class. It's a tactic that they use to punish working people when they elect politicians who propose raising taxes on the rich and corporations. So they say, oh, you're going to dare to elect people that want to hold us accountable? We're going to raise our prices and punish you for voting that way. And then they point the finger and go, look at those Democrats, look what they did. They're raising prices. Joe Biden is responsible for all this, blah, 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 blah. And then they hope people turn around and either vote for the next Republican or simply don't show up the next time around, which gives their guy the immediate edge in the next election. That's the trick they pull on you. Unfortunately, Americans sadly don't seem to catch on to this very quickly, if they catch on at all. They just go through the motions. They just say, oh, okay, next election, check. Next election, check. Next election, check. And that's how they develop this Democrat-Republican, Democrat-Republican, Democrat-Republican dynamic whenever there's an election, and they just treat all the other candidates as white noise. It's a vicious cycle, and inflation is one of the weapons that the rich and corporations use against voters and working people to try to stay in power throughout the whole of the country, really. And unfortunately, it works because people don't fully understand how this inflation tactic really works. So you got to use your power, your organized power of labor. You've got to call these business owners, these investors out, show them that you understand how corrupt they are and how greedy and selfish they are, and that you're willing to be, just as callous and insidious and malicious towards them as they were towards you by withholding your labor. Don't give them the means by which they can make more profit. Now, at the same time, they would say, all right, that's how you want to be. We'll just fire you all and we'll go over to Bangladesh and hire those people there. Well, there's something coming up about that. That's usually an empty threat anyway, because the United States is too big a market for them to abandon to make more profits. So understand that part of it right away. This is an empty threat because they know, Bangladesh may have, I really don't know the full number, but it's in the single digit millions or something like that, maybe 10, 20 million, I don't know. I don't fully know the numbers. But I do know this. It ain't nowhere near as big as the United States. And the United States has about 330 some odd million people. That is one of the largest markets in the world for these employers, these capitalists. They're not going to abandon that. If they know that these workers are demanding more just to keep that market, they're going to have to pay them more. And they know this. So they make this empty threat, and they count on you not being the wiser so they can get away with price gouging you. Meanwhile, your standard of living goes down, my standard of living goes down, everybody's does. And they are basically defeating their own system. They're consuming themselves. So understand that we have real power here. We have the means to take on corporate America. We have the means to restore balance in the economy, to even get a greater share of power and political influence in the economy. And all it takes is understanding of these tactics, what it's really about, and what we can do to combat it.